Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I will show you how to make a flower on a loom. These are also known as loom blooms, and they're very versatile. They only use a little bit of yarn. You can use them as an applique or stick them on just about anything. You can even scatter them across a springtime table. So for this project, you'll need some yarn. I'm going to use some worsted weight acrylic yarn, but definitely try different types of yarn, and novelty yarns would make fun flowers. You'll also need a pair of scissors and your loom. I got this at the craft store for just a few dollars, and mine came with this little tool to use. This helps lift the loops up and over each one of these pegs. And a lot of times the kit will come with a tapestry needle as well. You'll also need a pair of scissors. So let's get started. You can make your flowers like I did with a contrasting center, or you can make them all one color. It's totally up to you. So I'll get these out of the way. And I'm going to start with the pink. And we're going to begin by tying the yarn onto the loom. Let's get a little bit of yarn out of our yarn ball here. When you have your loom, it's going to have this little peg on the side. That's called an anchor peg. You're going to tie your yarn onto that with a knot. I like to come in about 4 inches or so, and a slip knot. You can use, if you prefer another knot, that's fine too, just to get it on there. And you're going to put the loop right onto the anchor peg and tighten it just like that. Then you're going to take your yarn, the working side, not the tail, that's attached to the yarn ball, and you're going to be working across from peg to peg all the way across, and we're going to be moving in a clockwise direction. So we're going to go this way, then we're going to shift and move this way, then this one, and this one, all the way across. We're going to be moving in a clockwise direction. If you need to, and if you find this helpful, you can also take a permanent marker and draw numbers on your pegs to keep yourself straight and make sure that you're getting each peg. So let's begin. Our loom has 12 pegs, and we're going to be working 3 layers to make our flower. This flower and each flower I showed you uses, this is 3 layers of loops, but if you want to do 1 layer or 2 layers or more, feel free to experiment. But I like the look that I was getting with the 3 layers of loops. So let's get started. We're going to come up from the bottom like this and go around the topmost peg, come around to the bottommost peg. See how I kind of made a figure 8? Next, we're going to go to the peg to the right of it and come back down to the peg to the left of it. We're continuing to work in a clockwise direction, just like that, all the way around. And this is going to be our first layer. Just like that, okay? And then we ended up by our peg where we started, okay? So let me just turn this a little to keep myself straight here. And then once you get your first, this is our first layer. So once you get the first layer down, then you can push. You can use your hands. I found it's a little easier to kind of pull them down with this hook. I guess you could call this a hook. It's not really like a crochet hook. It's shaped a little bit differently. But I found that this little tool was helpful to get all these loops down. Now everyone's loom might be a little different. Mine has these really deep hooks in it. Some of the pegs aren't as, the hooks aren't as deep. They just have like a little indentation. But I found that this tool helped me do that. And then you'll just push everything down to the bottom like that. Then we're going to make our next layer. So just come around the same way that we did before, working clockwise. And again, if you need to draw numbers on each peg with a permanent marker, if that helps you, definitely go right ahead and do that. I'm kind of one who will just eye things up, but if that will help you, definitely do that. Okay, so we've made our next layer. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Just pull down these loops so we can push them to the bottom. So this is layer 2. Just pulling those down. Just like that. There we go. Okay, and then you can just push that down to the bottom. So let's make our third and final layer of loops for our flower. And again, we're just going in a clockwise direction. And as you can see, these flowers work up very, very quickly. Okay, and we want to bring the yarn down, back down to the peg where we started. And at this point, we can go ahead and cut. And I just like to cut it the same length as the other tail that I've had made with when I started and made our slip knot. So then you'll take this last layer and you'll just do the same thing. You'll just pull everything down so you can push it. I just like to get them unhooked from these little hooks here. And every loom is a little bit different. Some looms I've seen you can just push them down with your hand, but this one has very prominent hooks on it, so I have to kind of get it off there with that tool. So we're just pushing this down. Okay, now let's tie this off. We have this was the piece we ended up with. So what we're going to do, because I like to take the tool again and reach up from behind, kind of scoop it, pull it to the back like that. Then we're going to take the knot where we first began and we're going to just pull that right off. And because I used a slip knot, it came right untied. And we're gonna bring it around. If I just went to the back, it would come unraveled because it's where we began. So I'm gonna crisscross over top of our flower, just go straight across, and then I'm gonna do the same thing. Just reach around from the back with your tool, scoop it up, and bring it to the back. Next, flip your flower over, and it's gonna look like this on the back, and knot it securely. This is a personal preference. I like to do 3 knots, but you can do as many as you feel comfortable with. 2 and 3. And then you're going to take your scissors. You're just going to trim that off. Just like that. And you can save these yarn tails for projects later. You can use them for the birds for springtime. You can use them for stuffing pillows or stuffed animals or things like that. Next, we're going to do the center, this little center, and that's going to anchor it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of, again, you can use the same color or you can use a contrasting piece of yarn. And I usually pull out about, let's say 24 to 36 inches. Usually I'm more on the side of 24 inches. And then you're going to fold it in half, just like I've done here, so that the ends are the same length. Next, you're going to thread your tapestry needle. And these come, mine original one came with a plastic tapestry needle. That's fine. It's whatever you have. And you're just going to thread it like that so that these are even. So it's doubled. You can do single, but the double looks nice and full, gives you a nice center. So let's go back to our loom. We're going to come up from behind like this, in between. See how I'm going in between the pegs, because each one of these loops on the peg is going to make a petal. So you're going to come up from behind like this. You're going to leave about, I would say like 3 inches underneath like that, and go directly across. So it looks kind of like this. Next, you're going to come across the opposite direction to make a plus sign. Whoops. So just come up. You almost need an extra hand for this part. So you're going to come up from behind again and go directly across. And sometimes you have to kind of get in there with your needle. It's fine. So we've made our little plus sign. Then let's make an X. Keep going. So we're going to come across here and across here to make an X. Back down in the side of the petal there. Whoops, it got hooked on my peg. That's okay. Okay, so it's looking kind of like a flower now. And then you're going to go, there's going to be a couple more to get, so just keep coming across like that. And then let's see, did we get them all? Nope, one more. Okay, so we're going to just finish it up like that. So it'll look kind of like that. If you come back to your flower, looks very similar. Then you're going to flip it over one more time. Get it nice and snug. I like to do things nice and tightly. It looks nice and neat with these flowers if you do things tight. Then you can cut it off so that your tails are about the same length. And then again, you can do however many knots you want. I find that 3 knots does the trick for me. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, then at this point you can leave these tails on if you want to tie it to something, or you can just trim them. I'm going to trim them just to show you. The flowers here that I made and showed you have all been trimmed on the back as well, but you can leave the tails on if you need to tie it to something. It's up to you. So our flower is complete, but we need to get it off the loom for it to look like this. So we're going to take our tool. Now, at this point, depending on your loom, you can take these pegs off of some looms, just pull them right off, and the flower will just pop off. But mine seem to be glued in, or else they're very, very stuck in there. So actually, I tried to take them out and I couldn't, so I guess they're glued in there. But so I'm just going to take my tool and just come in, and mine has, if you can see, these little grooves, and that helps with the hook. See how you can kind of run the hook along the grooves like that. So you can just reach in, and the first couple loops are going to be pretty tight. At least when I make these, they seem pretty tight. So you're just going to pop it right off, just like that, and just go all the way around. And you can use these, see how I'm like using the grooves to slide it up and off the peg. Those seem to help me a lot. So just keep going all the way around. We're almost finished our pretty flower. And I also wanted to mention, this is a great project for kids. If you are doing this with younger kids, just, you know, supervise with this tool. Is pretty pointy. If you have one with removable pegs, it's probably even more kid-friendly. But this is a great tool for kids, project for kids. They can make some to wear for their room or something like that. So now it's pretty loose as you continue around, and we can just go ahead and pull this flower off. So here is our finished flower. And again, I snipped off the back ends, but you can leave tails on if you need to tie it to something. And you can do these in different colors. You could also find some yarn with sequins or beads or something and get creative with how your flowers look. So that is how you make a flower on a loom, or a bloom loom, loom bloom, whatever you want to call them. And thanks so much for watching this video, and be sure and click the red subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!